Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. Liz Solar is a voice actor, a voice and presentation coach. After 12 years in broadcasting, Liz became a full-time voiceover talent, working with hundreds of local and global clients, including Boston Ballet, Public Broadcasting, USAA, Aetna, and Acura. She's worked with cohorts of business professionals as a presentation coach, helping them find their voice and present themselves authentically with confidence and grace. She's taught at Emerson College and provides voice coaching. When I asked Liz what her superpower is, she said it's a genuine curiosity about people and their stories and active listening. And today we're going to be talking about the essence of genuine communication. without any visuals, apparently. Liz, thank you for being here today.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for referring to me as the good stuff. I feel elevated now, but it's really a pleasure to be here. And you are one of my good new best friends. So it's wonderful to be here, wonderful to be with all of you today, and hopefully we can impart a couple of tips to take away, especially since we are so inundated with screens. I'm either looking at my phone or my tablet or my laptop or a television screen, and I am screened out. And I think that we are all kind of at this point where we have screen fatigue. But if we're going to look at screens, we might as well make it as engaging as possible. And I think it's really fitting that your entity is rise above the noise, because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of heat, but who's bringing the light, who's bringing the information, and who's bringing the engagement? And for people who are in business, I think that engagement is going to be what separates you from the rest and what distinguishes you from the rest, so that when people keep talking about when better days come, when this is over, when whatever is next comes next, you'll be in a really good position because people already want to engage with you. But on a personal level, everything here applies. And what's great is if you live with someone, you can use some of these little tricks on your significant other or your, rebellious teenager who doesn't want to sit down and do their streaming classroom, and to all the parents out there with children who need watching and interaction right now, just nothing but love for you, because you really have just enormous work in front of you and probably behind you, and you're right in the middle of it, and just nothing but love going out to you today. But I wanted to talk about effective communication, and probably, and I love to quote people. I always have a little quote I love, and I want to make sure that I quote George Bernard Shaw well. And he said, the single biggest problem of communication is the illusion it has taken place. And I think in our over digitized world, often what we think is blah, 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 or often what is blah, 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 we think is true communication. And so much of it is on transmit. And the real communication comes when there's a transmission and a receiver, and that there's some equilibrium to all of that, that there's a reciprocity to that and a generosity to our communication. And there are barriers, particularly now, to having really good communication. And communicating over this is really difficult. I love to be in the room with people. I love the energy of that, the feeding off of them, the getting the visual cues, the emotional cues, the way even somebody sighs or holds their hand or crosses their arms. It just gives you so much information about how to proceed with that person in conversation. So I guess when I'm talking about communication, I'm talking about the conversations that we have with people and what makes an effective conversation. When I think of really good communicators, and I'll put this out to all of you right now, who do you think of? It could be a famous person or not. Who do you find to be a great communicator? For me personally, it's Oprah Winfrey. I always feel that she is She has the characteristics that I think we all look for and admire in great communicators and conversationalists. She has incredible empathy. She's really clear. Her message is consistent. She often brings one of hope, of aspiration. And it's a very positive message. It doesn't mean that she's all rose-colored glasses, but she has a world view that is really inviting, and it invites others in. And having those types of qualities, it makes her a really great listener. And many years ago, she won some kind of an award, and she said, what we all want is to be heard. And I think all of us, in our own ways, in our own lives, we're just looking for those moments where we're being seen and heard and recognized for who we are. And not wanting to feel minimized or pushed into a corner or marginalized or condescended to. And I think in a lot, particularly in a lot of our media now, there's so much of that going on. And we live in a time where, you know, information is really important. And what type of information do we have? Do we trust that information? Do we trust the person telling us that information? It has a lot to do with how well that message is going to be received. And I watch way more cable news than I would like. And there's a lot of good information coming up, but mixed with that, there's a lot of negativity and a lot of just being on transmit and not really receiving, being tone deaf to what the average person might need to hear or what affects the average person's life, because it's not good for a lot of people right now. So
it's so true. And
point.
And I also right now, you're making me think about that. Like I said, I'm on Zoom calls all of the time. And you have your few minutes, right? You have your 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 5 minutes in a breakout room or whatever that is. And I've noticed that when you go into a room and somebody takes over the conversation, there's a feeling of that, especially because we're not feeling the energy. So it's really just somebody broadcasting. That's a really good way to put that, Liz. Thank you.
It really isn't, you know, actually personal broadcasting has become, I think, a barrier to good communication or conversation. And I think we've all seen that type of either personal broadcasting or personal branding, where the content really is self-referential rather than true information or something that is going to help you. Because one needs to ask, why am I here? Why am I giving this information right now? Why am I communicating with you right now? And is it something that you will benefit from, not just me getting it off my chest? And I find that those types of broadcasts, along with social media, can be very off-putting. And particularly, and I consider social media sometimes the hit and run of communication, that people will write something and sometimes it's very adversarial, and then some respond in kind, and I'm thinking, so what does that conversation mean?
Right. Yeah. And especially because sometimes it's just out of anger, but there's no context to it.
There's not, and that's when it's, I think, important to be a little bit self-reflective before we decide to impulsively put things down. I understand that frustration is huge. But I don't think it doesn't elevate the conversation. It's like, what are you really trying to accomplish? And if you want to vent, that's fine. It's probably just good to go old school, pick up the phone and call a friend and vent to a friend. But with so much social media reaching so many people, and if you are concerned about your reputation, your brand, you might want to stay away from some of that, because it diminishes if you're putting out good vibes to you can have opinions about things. It's how well they're stated, and if they actually enlighten rather than enrage.
It's so true. It's easy to fall into that negative. And I'm an eternal optimist, but even in the past few weeks, or the past week actually, I have felt that darker side, but also knowing that I've got to lean on that. Nobody needs to hear anything negative from me. right? It's not going to serve me. It's not going to serve them. They don't need to know that part. So what are we going to bring that's positive? What's the hope and the help, right?
Yeah.
The help and the hope that we can bring. Is it, and I'm referring you guys, I smiled when I said that because Liz and Deb and Liana and I are working on a collaboration of putting together resources that are called that help and hope. And so that we can, rise the boats together, elevate the conversations. But before I talk more about that, what I'd love to do though is maybe get a tip or two from you, Liz, on one, how to be a good listener and an interactive, engaging listener, and then how to use that skill in whatever type of communication that we might be engaging in at that time.
Absolutely. Probably speak to somebody, have a conversation with somebody to understand rather than reply. We're always in conversations, and these days, we want to get our piece in. So someone's not even, done with what they're saying, and we're in some of it's the technical glitches, but we're in there, giving our input before we've even had a chance to digest what other people are saying and be thoughtful about our responses to it. So I would encourage people to really, reflect about why are you speaking right now? And is it just there's a lot of Me Tooism. And that's fine. It's good to validate the other person. But the first thing is to understand what the situation is. In my own life, I've responded out of line by not really listening or not really hearing what that other person was saying and the subtext behind some of those words. Sometimes people say things and there's a layer underneath. And a good way to follow up with that is ask a question. That's interesting. Why do you say that?
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't thought about that. Tell me some more about that. And asking people for more information shows that you're interested, you're curious, and it's a genuine curiosity that people, when you ask, they want to talk about themselves. They want to talk about what they have to offer. And everybody has a gift, an expertise in something that is valuable. And if you're not really listening, you might lose that opportunity to receive that gift.
Let that sink in for a second, because that was so good. That was really good. About what can we say? I guess I'm thinking of the people who just don't get it and who are hard to communicate with.
Well, Susan, I think that there are so many barriers right now. We have the technology. So we're always multitasking on whatever. And it's very difficult to be present when we are multitasking, and we are all guilty of that. And sometimes it's necessary in our lives that we're multitasking, particularly if we're home with children and a job. And the other thing is the environmental noise. Now the washer's going and someone's vacuuming. So there are all these other noises. There's an airplane, not these days so much, but there are other noises that take our attention away. So people are always in a battle for who or what is going to get their attention. Social media, we read things and then we're kind of in this funk about, oh, why doesn't my life look like that? And it's like, first of all, it's someone's social media persona. So we amplify the good. So you get, and plus it's like, why are you paying attention to their life? Your life is here right in front of you.
Right.
And the things that you're able to control and influence are right in front of you. So please get out of your heads and kind of into that, relating first to yourself. What do I want? This is, we spoke right before this about you being an introvert and finding this a good time, as I think extroverts alike, finding this a time to be still and what do I want? Because usually if we have some envy about something, it's not that we particularly want that thing that someone else has. I think we're longing for what we want. And if there's some piece in that, I think it automatically makes us more generous and receptive to what people have to say. It sounds like a lot of cheerleading, but it's, use it in your personal life. If you have a spouse and they're saying something that you're really not loving right now, follow up with a question. I think we tend to get defensive or put up a wall or walk out of the room, do something when we don't like it. And sometimes maybe it does help to take 5. But what is it that they're really getting at? And if you ask them, and it's always about asking a question, not just to fact find, but to really get to the heart of what somebody's trying to say, what they're trying to convey. Sometimes the words aren't adequate.
That's so good. I have to say, I don't know when I started using it, but the tell me more has been like a mantra for me when either I don't know how to react, or I disagree a little bit, or I just don't get it. And so often I will say, oh, tell me more. And it's helpful. It's helpful for me. And I also think it's helpful for the person who might have felt maybe, with the energy thing, maybe they felt a little bit of resistance to what they felt me having some resistance. And this way it gives them an opportunity to expand and to bring it back and calm whatever energy was between that thought and the acceptance of it.
That's an excellent point. It's meeting people where they are. Because if you're saying, tell me more, basically, you're telling them, I really don't know what you're talking about. And I really do want to understand. And we might come from a different place, but I want to know about your place.
Right.
And that just gives you an entree, and it makes your interactions more genuine, because you're really coming from that place of, I want to speak to you on your terms, where you are right now. And if you can treat, and it's easier said than done, but if you can do that, I think you find that you add to your tribe, you add to your joy, because it's a wonderful thing to connect. That's what we want. We want a real connection.
Yeah. It's helped me a lot with my kids too. I have all young adult kids now, and actually adult kids now. And sometimes they just need to vent. And as the Jewish mother that I am, I want to give them advice and I want to tell them what to do. But having switched over to the mindset of tell me more, it allows them to get all of their venting out. And then if they want advice, they'll say something like, what should I do, Mom? Or what do you think?
We become so much wiser as we and our children get older. It's amazing. But to your point, nurturers, people who kind of are in charge, who are used to a lot of responsibility, natural fixers. Right. Let me fix that for you. And often people just want to be heard. Yes. They just want a place to lay some of that down, not to burden somebody, but to just share it. And sometimes to get a reflection of, am I off base with this? And sometimes that's the implicit question with it as well. Am I okay here? And just listening to it and saying, what, I hear you. I hear you. And if you're looking for advice, we can talk about that, but I'm going to support you. Whatever your decision is going to be the right thing for you. Or if did you misread that situation? I'm not sure. I wasn't there, but from what you say, maybe you were, maybe you did overreact to that. And we, rather than going in and doing a, rescue mission, we're just letting them lay it down for a while so they can pick it back up again and feel competent in their own lives.
So good. I could, and I know we'll have more time to talk off of this, but I want to kind of come around to this in that genuine communication, especially now, right? Like this whole seeing people on screens thing where we only see each other from here up and we can't read the body language. And we're seeing really, I think, more people than ever. And we're seeing each other in our natural habitats, as it were. I think the good listening and communicating skills are really very important. And especially if you're going to these networking events. So even if you are, so I'm in the polka dots of Central Rhode Island, but now I can go to a polka dot meeting anywhere. I can go to a polka dot meeting in Colorado or California, right? So I'm meeting completely new people. And so I have to be, they don't know me as well. They haven't experienced my in-person energy. And so how do I communicate, and how do we communicate? So with the work that you do with people then, and helping them to communicate clearly, what does that look like? I know that we're getting close on time, but I did kind of want to come around to how is it that you help people in the work you do?
First of all, it's really important to ask people, what they're trying to accomplish with this and what they're trying to say, because often people are looking to do a presentation, and sometimes it's a work presentation, and those can be really dry. And there are those who feel like they're not enough. So basically what they do is they deliver their PowerPoint presentation, all 45 slides of it,
Oh, that's
or
me.
they, yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But maybe, one or the other. I'm not sure that you need to repeat everything that's on a slide or a card, or they're delivering the white paper, or they're delivering 7 or 8 points when really your presentation can only be about one thing. So it's getting people to get very clear about what they want to talk about. And even if it's just having a difficult conversation with a friend, so what's the thing that you would like to convey? And then working on some of the confidence, because most of us are non-confrontational. We don't want to ruffle feathers. So how do we approach people with maybe a difficult conversation in a way that both people come out feeling like, okay, I might be a little bruised, but I'm not battered. Like, I can take that information. And sometimes when we're stung, it's because it's true.
Mm,
Whatever that information is. Oh yeah, that's right, I do that thing. And so having someone say it in a kind way, but in a clear way, is really helpful. I think being concise helps. And often people feel like, well, I don't like the way I sound. And spoiler alert, nobody likes the way they sound.
right.
Nobody likes the way they look, on a camera or a screen. I'm going to receive this later and just cringe and say, not sharing this with anybody. But we have to get over ourselves with that. And,
Yes.
just understand, like, this is who we are. And the more we get comfortable with, I'm okay with who I am, and I have
Yes.
something to share. And if we're not thinking about how am I coming across, and thinking, what do I have to give that person? That gives a lot of confidence, because all of a sudden what you have to share is valuable, and you're not processing it and editing it as you're delivering that information.
Right.
I do want to say one more thing about being a good communicator. One, I would say, like, maybe put this down once in a while, because we have this by our side and we're always paying attention, so it makes the other person feel like there's always a sloppy second. And the other
Yeah.
thing is, understand during this time we all have so much anxiety,
Mm.
low level or high level. And anxiety can manifest itself as a lack of attention and a preoccupation. So be gentle with yourself, be gentle with other people as they try to figure out what they're trying to say and how they're trying to attend to what you're saying in these conversations that we're having in the endless Zoom room.
The endless Zoom room is so true. Well, to invite people to another, but it won't be endless. Liz and I mentioned Deb and Leanna, are putting together this collaboration, and Liz's spotlight will be on taking a deeper dive into what she just presented today and giving more tips and offering more time. If you have any questions right now, you can pop them in the chat or in the Facebook Live. I'll take a look at those in a second. So watch your emails for information on that. It's going to be May 12th. I think it's at 10 or 10:30, Help and Hope for Small Businesses. And we have 4 experts in different areas who are here to help us come on the other side of this, whatever the other side of this is. And maybe it's now moving towards the other side, but to come out of this stronger with better messaging, with more relationships that are clearly outlined so that you can be of more service to more people in a more authentic way. So watch that. Liz, you mentioned that you offer free 15-minute kind of a consult or a discovery call.
Absolutely. Get in touch with me, Liz, L-I-Z, at Liz Solar, S-O-L-A-R, like the sun, which is not shining today, .com. Reach out to me. I'm waiting to hear from you. Let's talk. And if you have any concerns about your vocal presence, the way you present yourself, need some support on your presentation, or just in having day-to-day dealings with people, that's something to work on. But the one thing that you can work on your own is just listening.
I love it. So good. You guys, if you're listening to this as a replay, send us your questions. Liz and I are going to be monitoring the Facebook chat over the next couple of days. And get in touch with Liz. You know what? She's so nice to talk to. Get in touch with Liz. Have a 15-minute cup of tea with her and talk about what your thoughts are on this, or maybe she can give you a tidbit to take back. We're all a nation of communicators in one way or another today. So think about what it is you're communicating. Liz, thank you so much for taking this
Thank
time with me
you.
today.
Oh, my pleasure. And we'll do this again.